Hi, this is Mike Filipov from PracticeGuitarNow.com, and in this video I'm going to answer a very common question I receive from guitar players about what they should be practicing, what exactly they should include in their practice schedule. Now, as you can imagine, of course there's no possible way for me to lay out item by item what every guitar player in the universe should be practicing for the next 10 years, because of course it varies so much depending on your individual goals, your current skill level, how much time you practice every day, and so many other factors. But the good news is that the things that all guitar players, or at least the vast majority of guitar players need to practice, have a lot more in common than many people realize. Many people falsely assume one of two things. Either that each guitar player should practice totally specific and unique things, and no two guitar players should practice anything alike. And the other myth is that practicing guitar is kind of a free-for-all, and anyone can practice whatever they want, whenever they want, and they'll still get results. Well, neither of those two things are true. In reality, great guitar players became great because they practiced a certain set of things. And it would be impossible for one to expect to become a great virtuoso guitar player, or even to simply reach their unique goals without practicing the specific things that lead to those goals. Of course, that's an obvious point, but it will help to understand everything I'll describe later in this video. So, with the only possible exception of guitar players who only want to learn their favorite songs as a hobby and never do anything creative whatsoever beyond that on their instrument, for everybody else, here are the most important things you should be practicing on a regular basis to improve your guitar playing. Number one, guitar technique. It doesn't matter if you don't aspire to become a great virtuoso player, or if you only play classic rock or blues. You still need to have physical capacity on your instrument to play the notes you want to play and to express the music you hear in your head. So having better technique will only help you towards that goal. Now, if you hold the belief that having superior technique and having speed in your guitar playing somehow detracts from your ability to be creative, then I invite you to watch another video of mine on this particular issue that you can watch in an annotation that addresses this topic in detail. But in general, keep in mind you should be practicing technique on a regular basis all the time. Now, of course, the specifics of how much time you should put into guitar technique and what specific techniques you should practice are all going to vary depending on your current skill level with technique, your current skill level with other musical skills, your available amount of time, your specific musical preferences, what style you play, and many of those other variables. But in general, you should make time for practicing technique on a regular basis. Number two, music theory. You are not going to become a great musician without knowing some amount of music theory. It doesn't matter how many interviews and articles you read about guitarists like Jimi Hendrix and Jimmy Page and Stevie Ray Vaughan not knowing music theory. That is completely false. If they did not know any music theory, they would not be able to play anything on guitar. They wouldn't be able to stay in key while soloing, even over a simple blues progression. So maybe they weren't masters of music theory, but they did absolutely know enough theory to play whatever music they wanted to play. That leads me to my next point, which is that you must be able to apply every music theory concept you learn, or else it's completely useless to you. So if you're studying music theory just for the sake of studying it, you're going to forget it very quickly, and you're just going to join the ranks of guitar players who claim that music theory is useless, that it just is boring, or takes away from your creativity, or any of those false claims that people make about music theory. If you study music theory correctly, you will know exactly how to apply every concept you learn into your guitar playing right away, and then it will be impossible for you to feel like you are not becoming more creative, because obviously you are becoming more creative. A great resource I can refer you to that will help you to learn music theory in a very cool way that is directly applicable to guitar playing is a website, musictheoryforguitar.com, run by my good friend Tommaso Zilio, who is very knowledgeable about this particular concept of applying music theory elements to guitar playing in a very simple and easy to understand way. He also has a great channel on YouTube that you can check out by clicking the link in the description of my video that I highly recommend you to check out. He has a lot of videos on how to do exactly what I just explained to you. Take any concept and easily apply it to making music right away. So check him out, he's a great guy. His information is top-notch. The third element that you must be practicing if you want to be creative on guitar in any capacity is ear training. If you want to write your own songs, improvise guitar solos, or write your own guitar solos, then you had better make time for training your ear. Training your ear is what gives you the ability to hear music in your head and know exactly what it sounds like on the guitar and instantly translate it into the right notes that you play on guitar at the right time. Most guitar players do not practice ear training at all, and their playing greatly suffers because of it, since they never learn how to develop this connection between what they hear in their head and what their hands can do. And as a result, their creativity is limited to just running up and down scale patterns and arpeggio shapes and just regurgitating licks that they've learned somewhere. So make time for practicing ear training. Number 4, you have to practice phrasing. What phrasing refers to is how you play the notes you play. If you've ever heard guitar players talk about how no two guitar players sound alike even when they play the same lick, what they're talking about is phrasing. This refers to how you apply the ornamental techniques that shape the sound of the notes you play, such as bending, vibrato, slides, hammer-ons, pull-offs, the pick attack you use, how you change the rhythm of the notes, and so many little nuances that all shape to give each guitar player their own unique sound. Now, contrary to popular belief, you can absolutely practice all of these elements of phrasing in a very, very tangible and structured way. One example of this I show on my website in a video you can watch for free. Just click the link in the annotation, you'll be taken to that page, and you can watch the video where I talk about practicing vibrato in a very, very structured way to give your playing a more creative sound. Bottom line is, learn how to practice phrasing and integrate this element of guitar playing into your guitar practice routines. The next item on the list is fretboard visualization. What this refers to is the ability to take any chord or any scale and know exactly how to find dozens and dozens and dozens of ways to play that same chord or that same scale anywhere on the fretboard. For example, all guitar players know how to play the open G major chord or the open C major chord right here in the first position, but few guitar players know how to find 30 to 50 more ways to play those same chords in different places on the guitar. The same thing applies to scales. Most people already know how to play the first shape of the A minor pentatonic scale. But few people feel totally fluent and confident with soloing in A minor using the entire neck of the guitar without getting lost. So that is what fretboard visualization is about. If you struggle with fretboard visualization and want to learn more about how to specifically practice it, especially as it applies to scales, then I have a whole course on how to master fretboard visualization with scales, so you can take any scale you want to learn, any scale you can imagine, and learn how to easily visualize it in every position on the guitar, and learn how to be creative with applying it into your music and into your guitar solos. If you want to learn more about that, go to my website, the link above me, and you can read all about it and use that course to improve your guitar playing. The next item on the list is chord and scale vocabulary. You must learn how to play all the chords and all the scales that apply to your specific musical style. But a note of caution: do not simply go out and learn dozens of chords and dozens of scales just to say that, okay, I know these scales and I know these chords now. Because simply learning a whole bunch of chords and scales just to memorize the basic shapes is going to be very limiting in terms of helping you to use them creatively in your music. As I mentioned earlier about practicing music theory, when you learn a new concept or when you learn a new chord or a new scale, take the time to understand how it works on guitar in detail. When you learn a new scale, don't just learn one shape of the scale, learn all shapes of the scale. When you learn a new chord, don't just learn one fingering of the chord and that's it. Learn what the notes are, learn where those notes can be found elsewhere on the guitar, so you can visualize those scale shapes and chord shapes more fluently. This goes back to the point about fretboard visualization. The point is, don't simply learn these shapes for the sake of learning them. Understand how they work and how they apply to music. Even if this means focusing on just a handful of chords and a handful of scales for a year, you'll still become a much better guitar player for it than if you learn dozens of scales but only know how to apply them in a very small number of contexts. There are many other mistakes that guitar players make when they try to build their scale vocabulary, and also in the same way when they try to build their chord vocabulary, and I talk about them in an article that I've written on this topic that's on my website, practiceguitarnow.com. You can read about it simply by going to the link above me, and you can learn how to avoid these same mistakes in your practicing when you build your chord and scale vocabulary. The next item on the list that all guitarists need to practice, unless you only intend to play by yourself and for yourself, is rhythm guitar playing. If you want to play in a band, or if you want to simply jam with others, or if you just even simply want to play along to backing tracks using drums, then you must have the ability to play in time and make your rhythm guitar and palm muting sound good and sound tight. This is a skill that does not develop on its own. I have yet to see anybody who is naturally gifted the first time they pick up the guitar and learn to play rhythm guitar tight and in time without ever practicing it beforehand. So if you have not set aside specific time yet to work on your rhythm guitar playing, then I guarantee you that you have a lot of work to do in this area, and you must make time for it when you're practicing. When you do, you'll become a much better guitar player, and every band in your area will want you to be the guitar player in their band. And last but certainly not least, you need to be practicing creative application. What I mean by that is you must actually practice making music in whatever way you want to make music. If you want to become a songwriter, practice writing songs. If you want to write guitar solos, write lots of guitar solos. If you want to improvise, practice improvising. These are all skills that come out as a result of applying all the skills that I mentioned previously, as a result of applying your technique, your music theory knowledge, your ear training, your phrasing, your fretboard visualization, and to a certain extent even your rhythm playing. All these things allow you to be creative in the avenues of songwriting and improvising and soloing. But at the same time, realize that you're not going to become a great improviser simply by learning a bunch of music theory, knowing a bunch of scales, and developing your ear. You need to actually practice improvising as a process of applying all the skills you've developed in isolation to become good at improvising. This sounds obvious, but it's important to be stated that you actually need to set aside time for this skill in your practicing. Now that we've covered the most important things that all guitarists need to make time for in their practicing, here are two things that too many people waste time on that really do not deserve as much practice time as they get. The first one is learning lots of songs and solos by other guitar players. The exception to that is if you're in a cover band and you must learn a certain set of songs to perform with your cover band, or if you simply love a certain song or a certain solo and want to learn it for enjoyment, that's fine. But if you simply spend a whole bunch of your practice time learning songs and solos by others, thinking that doing that is going to somehow develop you into a more creative guitar player, you're completely mistaken. Songs are not exercises. They don't really help you develop your technique because they're not structured in a way to develop any particular technical skill. Yes, they get you to move your hands in a certain way to play the licks and the solos of the song, but they don't fix specific problems in your playing, and they don't develop general skills that make you a better guitarist. At the same time, learning songs doesn't make you more creative, because simply by learning the notes that are involved in a song doesn't mean that you actually understand in music theory terms what exactly is happening to make the song sound the way that it does so that it appeals to you. So again, if you want to learn a particular song because you enjoy the song and want to learn it, perfectly fine, go ahead and learn it. But just don't mislead yourself into thinking that learning a bunch of songs will make you a better guitar player. That will not happen. The next item that too many guitar players waste practice time on needlessly is learning how to read music. Now, don't misunderstand me. Learning how to read music is important for a certain set of goals, such as if you want to go to music school, for example, you must know how to read music. If you want to teach at a music school, obviously you must know how to read music. If you want to be a classical guitarist, you want to learn how to read music for that, obviously. For certain styles of jazz, you have to learn how to read. But for the vast majority of other guitar players who simply want to play music well, and they want to write their own songs, and they want to improvise at a high level, learning how to read music is not going to get you any closer to those specific goals. On the flip side of that, learning how to read music requires a lot of upfront work before you see any results from your efforts. So if you want to learn how to read music because you are totally certain that it directly and specifically applies to your musical goal, certainly fine. Then set aside time for learning how to read music. But if you're not 100% sure about how learning how to read music is going to help you become the guitar player you want to be, then think twice before investing 6 months to a year into learning how to read music when in reality it's not going to benefit you all that much. So this wraps up the list of the most important practice items that all guitarists need to focus on. And now I want to help you with putting all of that together into a practice routine that will help you to get results. And I talk about how to put together the best practice routine for you in another video on my channel that you can watch by clicking the annotation link above me. And check it out now, and you will learn a lot more about how to take all these items and actually begin practicing them to become the guitar player you want to be much faster. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit the thumbs up button below to like the video. If you're not yet a subscriber, make sure to subscribe to get regular notifications of all my future videos on how to improve your guitar playing. Have fun practicing, and I'll see you next time.